People say that I'm one of the greats, I'm the one that you love to hate. Shake 'em up like a quake, pop your feelings and turn and dispose 'em like haters I throw away. I'm forever blessed, got the spirit that's holy controlling me, I ain't gotta coordinate. I just sit back and buckle my bells and I'm ready to blast in the stars of my destination. Melted broadcast, open vision, melted broadcast, open vision, melted broadcast, open vision, melted broadcast, open vision. What's going on, everyone? This is Tony Mars with the Melted Broadcast. Today's guest, Christian Carroll, musician, UFO experiencer, and the creator and host of the fast-growing Space on the X UFO Experiencer Abductee Support Group. Welcome to the conversation, Christian. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was born in Dublin, Ireland, and I lived in Ireland for about 12 years of my life. I moved back and forth between, I traveled a lot between the States and Ireland. Uh, there wasn't a whole lot of interesting stuff in my childhood, really. It wasn't until I was about 12 years of age. My father said to me, he's like, come over here to to the States and play some music, and you'll make tons of money over here. And I
Yeah.
was like, all right, sure. I came over, and I never went back after that.
So
Um,
so you were
but
born in Ireland?
yeah, yeah,
Oh, okay. Also, how's it out
yeah.
there?
It's raining all the time.
What,
It
really?
rains twice. Yeah, yeah, it rains twice a year in Ireland. First for 6 months and then for another 6 months. It's raining all the time.
What?
Yeah. So I was glad to get out of there and move to where there was a bit more sunshine. So
Yeah.
probably the only Irish person you'll ever meet that has a tan. You know.
Yeah.
So what do you call it? Yeah, so there wasn't a whole lot in my childhood that was very interesting. It was about when I was 12 years of age, and uh, I started playing the violin. I wasn't very good at it. You know what I mean? It was just kind of like chicken scratch. And
Yeah.
on my 13th birthday, I fell asleep and woke up and I could play, and that was it. You
What?
know, I just I could pick up like any instrument, play it. Just, it was very strange. Everybody went into strings class the next day, and my teacher's jaw was like on the floor. She was like, "Oh my God, you're savant." Like, I was hated in strings after that. You know what I mean? All
Yeah, I bet.
my yeah, all the students were all like,
Yeah.
get out of here. You're not
Yeah.
yeah, the teacher was always like, just do it like Christian does it there. And I was like, I'm not, I
Oh
don't know what
man.
I'm doing,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it
Putting
was,
that target on your back.
right. Yeah, I was like, don't say that. Oh God. Yeah. But after that had happened, my life kind of changed, right? So I was doing school and all that. And after that happened, I played sports and all that jazz. And all of a sudden I was a musician,
Yeah.
just like that, the drop of a hat. And I started playing music with my father in a pub down here. And I was doing that on the weekends, like every weekend. So it was like, the school kind of took a back seat, and was making money and just kept going from there. And then I just here I am now, after a lot of high strange events after that, you know what I
Yeah.
mean, was kind of when all the strangeness started happening around me a bit, you know. So that's kind of how I got here. And
Yeah.
that's my little story about my life. And here I am now
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
phone with you.
Yeah. And I appreciate it. So you played
Yeah.
the electric fiddle. That was like you said your main go-to.
Yeah, that is my instrument. Yeah, that's the thing that I do. What do you call it? We play all sorts of music. I tend to lean into more of like rock and roll. That's a lot of
Hell
my
yeah.
yeah, I love that. That's my
Yeah.
stuff. And then I get a lot of sorry, my cat wants to jump up here on the table.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah. Um, lot of old school like rock and roll, like Led Zeppelin, Pink
Yeah,
Floyd, all that, that kind of like classic rock that's just really melodic, you
yeah,
know. Yeah, it
yeah.
was that was kind of my cup of tea, as well as we do all sorts of traditional Irish music as well,
Okay.
and yeah, so
I probably wasn't as good as you, but I was in the band also growing up. First chair
all
section
right,
leader with the Hot Sox.
there you go.
I played the tuba. So that was,
Sweet, man.
yeah, that was my go-to. It sucked because I'm short, and I started off like in the sixth grade, and growing up playing the tuba, I was pretty good at it, but I freaking hated
Right.
that thing. I hated that thing.
Oh yeah. See, that's the unfortunate part, and that was the one thing that, I really appreciated about my father and my mother, is they didn't push me, you
Yeah,
know what I mean, to play music. They were kind of just like, oh yeah, sure, if you want to do it, do it. And that was what worked for me because I was a very headstrong kid, I was like,
yeah.
I don't want to do that, you know, uh, this and that and the other. And the first instrument that I played, funny enough, was the trumpet. That was the first one I
Oh,
ever
okay.
played. Yeah, and I fell in love with it. I was like, oh my gosh, the sound is beautiful. And I told my mother, I was like, I want to play the trumpet. And she's like, no, no, no. She said, you're not going to play the trumpet. She said, no son of mine's going to be a band geek. So she said to me, and I was like,
Oh my
what?
God.
Yeah. And I was like, okay. And so, the only reason I actually uh, picked up the violin was because I had a crush on a girl in the orchestra, of course.
Oh man. Yeah.
So I went back to my mother and I was like, is it all right if I play the violin? And she was like, now there's an instrument that a woman would enjoy.
Oh
And
man.
that was that, and the rest of
Yeah.
it's history. And
Yeah.
yeah, so that's cool, man. Very cool that it's unfortunate that you gave it up. I'm sure you still have some
Yeah.
of those skills. It's like riding a bike, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, anything with music, like even with the show, like all the music on it, I created myself, and all original. So I mean, music's always been a passion of mine. Even rapping, I used to
All right.
rap in Houston, and shoot, we actually, we're doing shows. We came on the radio, Latino Rap Illustrated magazine, but
Nice.
then being a little young hardhead at the time, I wasn't doing right, so I took my ass to the army and
All right.
yeah,
Thank you for your service.
yeah, appreciate it. Straining myself out. A lot of trial and
Yeah.
error. And then of course,
Yeah.
my awakening, which, completely changed my life.
Mm.
So all right, so Ireland, you moved to the States, awesome musician, playing old school rock.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so when did these experiences of yours start happening? Like at what age?
Well, it was right around that time, like I started seeing a couple of weird things, like the first one that I remember, like really, really remember, was I was outside of the place where I play music at, which is an Irish pub down here in Charleston.
Okay.
And I was just sitting outside. I was smoking a cigarette. I smoked. I was a heavy smoker for the time I was like, 14 years of age up till, COVID.
Yeah.
And then I quit. And I still chew nicotine gum. So if you hear me chewing every once in a
Oh,
while, excuse me.
I know the struggle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the only vice I have left. Um,
Yeah.
so I was sitting there smoking a cigarette, and walk the way that the street is set up is you walk down the street, and then there's a side street that you can turn down, but the street keeps going, and that's where the pub is. Like it's on the corner of the street. And I seen a woman walking by, and she was kind of like limping,
Yeah.
like the best way I could describe it, she was walking like this,
Yeah.
you know it was weird. um but that's not the strangest part about it. I looked at her face, and her face was elongated. Like it was very elongated,
Like
almost
sideways?
like, yeah, sideways.
What?
Yeah. She had one eye that was like up here, and then other eye that was like down here. uh, and her face was radiating this whitish, like blue light. It was like radiating out of her face. And I was in shock just looking. You know what I mean? You kind of see something that you've never seen before, and you're like,
Yeah.
and then she kept walking until she turned the corner, and I kind of like snapped to, and I stood up and I ran around the corner to see what I was looking at, and she was gone. And I was like, that was very, very weird. That
Yeah.
was kind of the first time I'd seen anything that was very out of the ordinary. I was very, you know, the first thought that I had when that happened was, I was like, man, I was like, are people born with like cartoon faces? Because that's the best way I could
Yeah.
describe it. I was like, what in the world am I seeing here? So that was kind of like the first time I'd seen anything that was super strange that I
Yeah.
could really like be present for,
Yeah.
I guess you'd say. Um, yeah, that was a weird one. And then after that, uh, I kind of, like any teenager does, we get on the internet, we're like, oh, we get into the dark web and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. And I came across some pretty heavy stuff online, and kind of has to do with the stuff that we're seeing today that's being
Yeah.
kind of like revealed, as far as like the elites are concerned and all that stuff. And that that year I was audited by the government. I think I was 15 or 14. Yeah, it was 14, I think,
What?
at the time. Yeah, I was audited. Yeah.
That's
And the
crazy.
government said, yeah, the government said I owed them $10,000 in back taxes. I was like, what? It was they were dude, I would have been buried, absolutely buried for the rest of my days had my stepfather at the time. He was a very rich man, luckily enough, and he helped me get out from
Yeah.
underneath that. Yeah. Uh, and I kind of like took a step back from that. But in my before I came across all that, I kind of got into like I came across a website dump of like Area 51 files
Yeah.
is what they were called. And it was like a whole thing about it where it was like, aliens and, S4, like alien interview, all this stuff. And I was like, this is crazy, like came across all that. And so finally I was like, all right. So I started looking up at the sky all the time. I was like, it was like waking up, right? You know what I mean? It's like, okay, so I'm going to take a look now for this stuff.
Yeah.
And, and then I started seeing like all sorts of things in the sky, uh, like shared sightings with my father. We were driving down the road one day, and like way high up in the sky, uh, like higher than you'd see any plane is really the best way I could describe it.
Yeah.
But we saw this giant, like, uh, chrome cylinder, and I'm talking this thing was enormous because it
Yeah.
was to the size of like a cumulonimbus cloud, like one of those really big puffy clouds
Yeah.
is up in the sky, and I'm looking at this thing, and it shoots into the cloud and disappears. And I look at
What?
my father and I'm like, "Did you see that?" And he was like, "Yes, I did see that." And we kind of just like nodded at one another and kept driving because it was like, holy crap, man.
Yeah.
Like whatever that was, it was enormous.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and then in the area that I live in, there's actually an abduction story back in like the early 90s, I think, right around the place where I was living at. And there was a man who was abducted, and his wife and him kind of chased down this like pulsating light, that was like changing colors in a neighborhood. Uh, and he got out of the car, and I guess there was a flash and some missing time from the wife, and he was gone. And he was
Yeah.
missing for like, yeah, he was like missing for like 3 to 4 days.
Oh,
And they
damn.
found him walking on the side of the highway where I lived, uh, for like 3 or 4 days later with no clothes on, just had no idea where he was. And yeah, so this area's had some interesting things
Yeah.
that go along with it. So yeah, just a lot of I've seen I've seen a lot of what people would consider high strangeness or strange events in the sky. I would see like kind of the same thing around in the same area
Yeah.
that guy was. I've seen like a big pulsing like light in the sky that would change color. It would
Yeah.
go from like purple to green to orange, and it would shoot across the sky really quickly and stop, and then it would shoot all the way across the sky again and stop again. Uh, so just yeah, like a lot of weird things in the sky, just kind of high strangeness, and it all
Yeah.
started kind of after my 13th birthday when all of a sudden, I could play music. It was,
Yeah.
yeah,
It
yeah, a lot
kind
of
of makes
stuff.
it kind of makes me think like if maybe when you were 13, if you were taking or you're given like a download, and of
Right.
course, which you have all these incredible gifts, you could play these instruments, like on a whole nother level, and and then now you're starting to see all these objects in the sky, and you're obviously connected now in some way. Have like they ever tried to reach out to you or anything like that that you know of?
Well, not until like I feel like just recently, I kind of tried to stay away from all that stuff just because, I, as a teenager, I wanted to just hang out and have fun
Yeah.
and like hang out with friends and do the teenager thing, right?
Yeah.
Get in trouble, be the bad kid, all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff, right? Yeah. So I wasn't really paying attention to a lot of that stuff uh, until I was around like 17, where I actually had my incident happen,
Yeah.
where I was, and we can get into that, whenever you want to.
Oh, well, I
Um,
mean, whenever you're ready.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
tell your
So.
story at your pace.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I'm going to give my warning because I always give my warning about
Yeah.
this. It's pretty intense,
Okay.
and it's pretty like sexually graphic
Okay.
as well. So anybody watching, here's your warning. So it was the middle of the day. I was 17 years of age. Middle of the day. It was raining outside. Um, these are all the things that like I remember about the day kind of before I get there. It was just a normal day. I played some Xbox beforehand. I think I was playing Halo at the time. Um, yeah, it was like Halo 4 had come out, and
Yeah.
I was playing, snipers with one of my friends, and then he left, and I was like, oh, I'll just take a nap before I have to work this weekend. You know what I mean? I was always working on the weekends, so I was never actually out, hanging out with
Yeah.
friends on the weekends. I was working. Um, so I was like, all right, I'm gonna head into my bedroom. And at the time, I was in like a two-bedroom apartment. My father was living with me at the time because my father was actually like we had some financial hardships, and he was actually funny enough, to the conversation, he was an alien from Ireland. He was not, a U.S. citizen,
Okay.
so he had his green card and all that. Um, but the financial collapse happened, and we ended up losing the house in the 2008 financial collapse, and so I had to be the one that would be on the lease for the apartment.
Yeah.
So I had this apartment for us, and my father lived with me, and it was a normal apartment. You had your kitchen, you had your living space, and then my bedroom was right behind the living space, and then his bedroom was on the opposite side of where like the television and the couch would be. It was the complete opposite side. So I decided to go lay down in my bedroom. Now my bedroom was pretty simple. I didn't have a lot of stuff. I didn't have a lot of like artwork, stuff like that. There was a ceiling fan. Um, I had my bed right in the center of the room. I had a couple of dressers. I had a clock on the floor, uh, and a couple of cigarette uh,
Yeah.
ashtrays and a couple of cans that I dropped my cigarettes into because, we smoked inside whenever we didn't feel like getting up and going out. Um, so I decided I lay down in bed, and of course, I don't sleep. I didn't sleep with clothes on. That was kind of my deal. I was always that was how I did things, and I'm
Yeah.
just laying back, just relaxed. You know what I mean? Close my eyes for a bit. Kind of just looking at the back of my eyes, and I get to that point where you're relaxed, and your body finally just snaps and just relaxes. You
Yeah.
just it hits that point where you relax. And I was just and I opened my eyes up, okay, and I'm looking at my ceiling, and my ceiling gets torn off, like it's ripped off.
What?
From Yeah, it's like ripped off from the side of it. It's almost like it's peeled off, like a can opener would be peeled off. Like,
Yeah.
but it's crazy because like I can see all the wood pieces and all that being like ripped apart and like torn off. Um, and I'm looking, and immediately when that happens, like of course I want to move, right? But I can't. And my arms are like locked into place. I have my fists are like this, right?
Yeah.
But not together like this. They're out to the side of me. I can't really show you because the camera doesn't go that direction that
Yeah.
far. But I have them out to the side of me, and I'm trying to move and I can't. And the best way I can describe it is like my muscles feel like they're sprained, but bruised, and also kind of like, the pins and needles kind of feeling that you
Yeah.
get when your feet are asleep or something's asleep on your body. Um, and I'm like just I can't move. There's nothing I can do. So I can't even move my eyes back and forth. Like this is how like
What?
stuck in place that I was, man. Yeah, I was like I could open my eyes, but after my eyes were open, I couldn't shut them. They couldn't move back and forth. My body's locked in place. Um, so I'm looking in front of me, and the whole sky is like filled with fire. Like it's like a fire, uh, like clouds, like kind of just like erupting. Like it's like eruption of clouds and fire.
Yeah.
Um, and a translucent like rainbow, um like woman being. I can't like the best. I've tried to plug this thing into AI art like just
Yeah.
recently, just to get like a visual of it, and I can't. There's like nothing, like it won't prompt this thing. No
Yeah.
matter what way I put it in, there's no way that it'll like really show it. Um, it like transcends down from the sky here, uh like just locked eyes with me, right? But it's like it's you can see through it.
Yeah.
So it's like you can see through it. It's got rainbow, it's like a rainbow, almost like when you blow a bubble
Yeah.
and you see like that
Yeah. The
rainbowish color.
yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what it looks like. That's like the best way I think I could describe it, only with more vivid color in it. It's like descending towards me, and its hair is like in water. It's like almost flowing,
Yeah.
like it's in water, kind of just like flowing. Um, and it stops right about where my ceiling was, and suddenly I proceed to be lifted like out of my bed. Right, I'm like lifted straight out of my bed. Mine just still can't move at all. I'm lifted out of my bed, uh, and I'm brought like right to this thing. And it's like my body suddenly is like being used, like I'm almost like a puppet. It's like
Yeah.
being played. Now, this thing didn't give any indication to me that it was doing this, uh, other than like what happens next, right? So this is kind of like it's difficult for me to talk about because it's like I'm uncomfortable talking about like
Yeah.
any type of sexual things in general because it's not a normal conversation that
Yeah.
you have usually. Um, but just to kind of to tell the story, so I was brought up to this being, and I have no control over myself, and it proceeds to take control over my sexual organs.
Yeah.
Like it takes control over it and it forces me to have like an erection. Like I have no control over this at all. I, uh, you, I don't know if it's like the best way to describe this is like where you don't, um, like you don't want to do something, but your body's like making you do it,
Yeah.
you know? Um, so yeah, anyways, I'll keep going. Um, it proceeds to like uh uh have sex with me in the air, like forcefully.
Yeah.
I didn't, you know what I mean? Like this was not something that I wanted to engage in any way, shape, or form. Um, and like to the point of where, my body just automatically does what it does naturally, right? It finishes, and as soon as that happens, I'm dropped from where I am.
Yeah.
Uh, this is about like I'll give you this is where my bed is. This is where I'm at right here on this like the ceiling. I'm dropped. I hit my bed like this. I hit my bed, I bounce off and hit the floor. So this is where the floor is. I bounce off my bed, hit the floor, and uh I'm covered in sweat, like panicked,
Yeah.
crying on the floor, hyperventilating. Um I get up because I have control over my body again. I run out of my bedroom like screaming for my dad, and my father comes out, and I'm like, "Help me." You know what I mean? And he sat me down, and I explained to him what happened after I kind of like calmed down. And he was like, "I'm sure it was just a dream. I'm sure you're okay. Like there's no problem, you know." Uh and of course, like because I'm a private individual, as many
Yeah.
people, are and should be. Privately, I stepped back into my bedroom, went into the restroom, and examined myself. You know what I mean? And on the left-hand side of the head of my, uh, thing down here, there were two J-shaped cuts that were healed already.
Uh,
They almost look like it's so weird. The best way I can describe it is they look like Nike check marks.
yeah.
It was really, really weird. But they were healed already and they were scabs. And they're on the left-hand side. And uh, that was that. That was my experience. Um, I never felt like, it's so hard to explain because it's like as a person that's never, like I've never been like physically just like
Yeah.
aroused, I guess you would say, like I have to be involved with somebody
Yeah.
or I have to find them attractive or something like that, right? Uh, but no, my body was like taken over
Yeah.
and this happened and it was terrifying. I don't know like any other way to describe it because um like I don't hear usually you don't hear a lot of stories about men who've been raped,
Yeah.
about like, uh, this because I feel like, a lot of men have to be aroused in order
Yeah.
for something to occur, right? So that was not what happened. Like I was,
Yeah.
my full body was like forced to do this. Um, and after that, I've kind of been searching, far and wide, ever since then, um, for anybody who's kind of shared this experience or had an experience like this. And the closest I could come to it was, the UFO abduction scenario.
Yeah.
Was kind of the closest I came. The only thing that I could find closest to the creature or whatever the hell it was that I encountered, um, was in Greek mythology. So
Okay.
it's like, yeah, which was the goddess of the rainbow, um, uh, Iris. So
Uh,
that was like, yeah, the only thing that I could really find in like the mythos about it, mythology, religion, like all of it. Uh, I posted like, anonymously on, other message boards about it, just trying to get answers, and everybody's
Yeah,
just like, that's fucking crazy, man. Like,
yeah,
what, yeah, you know, so it's like, and me personally, like, I'm a very grounded individual. Like, sure, these things could be real, but I'm like, let's also take the logical approach
yeah,
here.
yeah. Soundstripe. Soundstripe. Yeah, that's how I
You
am too.
know, I wouldn't have chalked it up to anything other than a dream if I hadn't have hit my bed and fallen off of my, like, bounced off of my bed with my eyes open, watching this occur, and hitting the floor, and then having um the the two wounds, I suppose you'd call them,
Yeah,
that were healed. Uh,
yeah,
Otherwise, I would have been, like, that was just a really intense nightmare.
yeah,
Um, but so yeah, that was my experience, and after that, I kind of stopped. Like, I shut down that whole, like, avenue for a while. I was I
yeah. I
was
bet.
scared.
Yeah, I
You
bet.
know what I mean? I was like, I don't want to fucking ever have to go through that again. And that was it. I didn't really get back into, like, the UFO thing, or the kind of like the fringe side of life, I guess you'd
Yeah,
call it, until, like, way later on down the road. Actually, like, before COVID really was when, I started kind of getting back into that, because I was just so far removed from it. I didn't want anything to do with it.
that's crazy because I actually next weekend, we're gonna be doing the brown table with Parsi and
Right.
this. I don't know if you've met Skits, the POK.
I haven't met.
Yeah, we
No.
actually have an episode with him, and he's actually gone through kind of the same thing, and it's crazy that you bring up that being being see through because in the episode he talks about that he was taken up and transported I think onto a spaceship and the same kind of being, but instead of like the rainbow glow, it was like I guess like I guess like lightning kind of um like real shiny on the inside, but I mean pretty much almost
Interesting.
the same description.
Wow.
And then he was introduced to his hybrid children.
Wow.
Yeah, man,
That's what I'm interested about. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm very interested about that, because it's like, I felt like, because I've been asked, like, a great gentleman in the community as of late, Larry. I'm sure you're familiar with Larry.
yeah,
Uh, yeah, he asked me a question that nobody's ever asked me about it. It's like, did you, like, what did you feel like the purpose of the encounter was?
yeah,
And I was like, I felt like my genetic material was being harvested for
yeah,
whatever purpose, you know what I mean? And after hearing all these other stories about people who have hybrid children, I'm like, I'm wondering the same thing. You know what I mean? If there's somewhere out there that, I have a hybrid child out in I mean, it sounds so
yeah,
ridiculous saying it. You know
yeah,
what I mean? I hate that it sounds ridiculous saying it,
yeah,
because it's like, I went through this, obviously, uh, and a lot of other people have, but that's the stigma, right? That's what,
yeah, yeah.
you
They, they
know,
they think they think we're crazy. But I mean,
right,
even with
exactly.
with the hybrid children, being in this community, I mean, me, I 200% believe it. Like everything, to the T, I
Right.
believe it. I believe in people's accounts on on what
Yeah.
happened, and I mean, some of the stuff sounds terrorizing, but
You don't want to experience that because it takes away a part of you that like is men, okay, right?
yeah, yeah,
Is a man and is another man. Um, you don't ever want to feel like you have absolutely no control,
yeah,
right? Like none. Uh, and that will change you internally in a place where it's like, oh man, like I couldn't even control my body, you know. Um, like I can understand wanting to have like a first-hand account, like that
yeah.
makes sense, but not in the way that like I
Well, yeah, yeah,
experienced it,
yeah. I
that I
understand
ever
that.
want you as another man to experience that
Yeah,
because it's just so um it's like it really made me understand from like a female's perspective
yeah,
of like they experience things that are like, physical overpowerment by like a man, where they don't have control in that regard. It really like put things in a real perspective for me, that, no person, no individual ever should ever experience something like that. That should
yeah,
never be something that ever happens to anyone,
yeah, for sure.
period. Um, so yeah, I don't want that for you. That's what I'm trying to
Well,
say
not to the
as a
extent of that,
friend.
but I'm talking about like
Yeah,
more as like seeing a like a alien being like in real life,
right,
an experience of that sort. And it's crazy
right,
because
okay,
it makes me think back of when you're 13 and you woke up and you're able to play these instruments, these beings, like manipulating your DNA maybe for later on down the road for that account to try to
right,
get this hybrid child. And of course, you're regular, but then they come and mess with your DNA. You're they change it, and then of course, they want to mix theirs and create like these
right,
super hybrids.
right. Yeah, that's you know, uh, like, and that wasn't even an aspect of this that I thought about until I actually joined the community. You know, I didn't think about that at all. That was never a thought that crossed my mind, and
Yeah,
you know, now I have a fleeting thought every once in a while. I'm like, I wonder, I truly do. Um, and if I did, like, like what the first of all, what the hell kind of creature did I encounter?
yeah,
Is my memory even exactly what, like, was what I was seeing, what was actually happening? Uh, was it some other creature that presented itself, or, put a false memory in there while I was actually having like an abduction experience,
yeah,
to like make it not as unpleasant as it could have been. Um, like these are all thoughts that I, you know, haven't had until just like recently, because I had never really talked about my experience
yeah,
about this, because, yeah, you talk about something like that to somebody, they're like, okay, you're fucking crazy, man.
yeah,
And but this is the point here, is that like I still have trouble believing it, that it
yeah,
even happened. I wouldn't have believed it if it didn't feel so physically real to me and I didn't have like the physical after effects of it. Like I said, I would have just chalked it up to a dream.
yeah,
Uh, and I think that, all these things have happened, and here I am now, right? And I'm sure like your show, you know this, but like, we got on contact with one another through UFO Twitter,
yeah,
and that's where I kind of ended up, and I ended up there, um, just, by happenstance, really. I was kind of trying to, um, I was posting music and things like that on my Twitter, just kind of try to get myself out there a little bit. And of course, I've been watching some of the all the News Nation stuff and the David Grush and the Sean Kirkpatrick and
Yeah.
all the stuff that had been coming out. And I just so happened to start looking at it on Twitter. I was like, oh, well, let's see what's going on there. And I ended up joining into a space. I think the first space that I joined into was Paul's Portal. You know Paul, right?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he's great, absolutely great dude. And my first experience was a pleasant one, and I kept joining into Paul's space for a little while, uh, and then suddenly it wasn't too long after the community exploded.
Yeah.
Like it was like absolute
Yep.
like hatred and drama and just nastiness all the way around block, and I was like, oh my God, like
Yeah, people
you
so
know,
ready to try to discredit you and all that, especially
yeah.
like with Parsi.
Well,
Whenever
just
yeah,
yeah, it
shit
was
makes me
more
so
like
mad.
the drama and like the doxing. It was like the doxing and the like people trying to get other people in trouble, like with the law, things like this. And I was like, oh my God, this is horrible. Like, where's the space for people who have had like, traumatic
Yeah,
experiences or that are experiencing the phenomena, right? Like there are people that are experiencing this. And I was like, I'm gonna create my own space for, like a support group
yeah,
for people who are experiencing this on a daily basis. Like you said, like people like Parsi, he experiences this daily. Uh, he's, I mean, like that's people like Eric Mitchell, he's experiencing things on the regular. So many people, and I just like there's so many people that need to talk about this,
yeah,
uh, that are going through this. And I noticed that not a lot of people in the community they haven't experienced anything. This is just like this is a hobby.
yeah,
It's a pastime, which is fine. Like that's great. Like cool. Like keep it up. You know what I mean? Um, but there wasn't like really a safe place for the experiencer to come and tell their story without being laughed at or
yeah,
like, you're a Looney Tune. Obviously, uh, we deal with people who could be dealing with like, a mental disorder, things of that nature. There's a lot, the phenomena kind of is like an all-encompassing
yeah,
thing. Uh, that's why I'm always like, use your discernment to the best of your ability. And, I'm kind of like when you get to the point where it's like, hey, if you're not trusting your own thoughts, you need to seek a medical professional
yeah,
like
yeah,
immediately.
yeah,
Um, because some experiencers, they can get really, really out there, but there wasn't a place for them, no matter what. You so we're trying to create that now,
yeah,
because I needed a place to talk about it, and I didn't have a place, where I felt safe enough to do so without, somebody either like trying to dox you or, just be nasty
yeah,
as a person, which is
yeah,
unfortunate. But
yeah. I know.
we're trying to change the landscape. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? We're trying to change it.
and you definitely are. I think a couple nights ago I was able to get some time to join one and listen in. And man, the way you guys ran it, even with people trying to cut in, it's like no, you guys are nice about it. Like we don't do that. You raise your hand, and everybody's so
Yeah,
respectful to one another. And I was like, I mean that's the kind of thing that people need. A safe place where they could go tell their experience. You're not gonna have these people coming at you and trying to discredit you and say that you're crazy. It's nothing but just love and support and for one
right.
another. And I really appreciate that you're doing something like that. For all the experiencers,
Yeah.
I think it's pretty amazing.
Thank you, man. Yeah, you know, we're all in this together, right? My father used to say this to me. He'd always say, "There's one thing that's guaranteed is that no one's getting out of here alive." So, you know, we
Yeah,
have to we have to stick together. You know what I mean? Um, yeah, and I think, you know, the what we're trying to really do though is we're trying to, just change the conversation in general to a more balanced conversation. I think in life, with the internet and online culture in general, we've really gone to a place where we're not, it's very easy to just say something
Yeah.
without any reprimand at all. And I think that we're moving more and more and more towards that in real life. You can see it every day, unfortunately, um, with all the violence and all the, just the anger, and we could get into a million different ways of why that
Yeah.
is the way it is with AI
Yeah.
algorithms and money.
Yeah.
But uh, I think, what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring people to the present moment, trying to bring them here and now to where we're listening to what one another is saying. We're taking it in. We're uh, unpacking what was said versus responding,
Yeah.
right? Instead of being
Yeah.
like, well, this is that and this, that, that. It's like, no, no, no. Let's talk about what you just talked about and let's unpack that.
Yeah.
We got to start moving in the world with some more love and kindness, or
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like we're definitely going to end up, nukes dropping everywhere
Yeah.
at this
Yeah.
point. Yeah.
So, for all the experiencers out there that are afraid to come out, what advice would you give them?
I would, my first bit of advice would always be to use logical discernment. That's always my first bit of advice is like, take an inventory. It's like, okay, what did I experience? Like why is it that I feel that this was a real experience? I think that's like the first and foremost. So that way you can kind of have a bit to like, unpack when
Yeah.
you get to where you're going to go. Make sure that like you at the time, if you weren't on drugs, all sorts of like you weren't drinking, things like that. Like which by the way, I wasn't drinking or on drugs at that time. I've never actually used like a hallucinogenic drug in my life.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I was clean at that time. So I check to make sure that that's that because when you come into a place where you want to share your experience, obviously there's going to be people who are going to want to question and ask you these things. You have to be
Yeah.
comfortable with your experience, I'd say, uh, in that regard. So become comfortable with your experience. Know that it's okay that you had the experience. Uh, and I'd say use discernment if you're going to go to like a therapist or a doctor about those kinds of things. Make sure that they're a doctor that kind of deals in things like that
Yeah.
first and foremost, because I think, as we all know, as the community, people who have dealt with these kinds of things before, they want to lock you up in the nut house if you
Yeah.
say things like that. You know what I mean? Which I mean, understandably so. It's extremely ontological for somebody who hasn't experienced something like that. So I would say use your discernment. Go to a doctor. Um, Check to make sure that you've got a clean bill of health. That you're doing all right mentally as well.
Yeah.
You know, just all those things. And then I'd say, try to find a group like the group that we're creating, uh, to have a safe place to be able to share those experiences.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I know that they have like I know MUFON did a lot of cases and things like that where they'd give people cases, but we're dealing with high strangeness. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to necessarily be a UFO or uh, an abduction type event.
Yeah. Yeah.
It could present itself how it presented with me. So I would say try to search for a group where uh, it's for the experiencer. And because and it's hard because a lot of this stuff, like this is like the new thing, right? This is the beginning of something that we're trying to do. So I would suggest, hop on to Twitter, find me if you can. We'll have a space. We usually do the spaces early, like very early morning, Eastern Standard Time,
Yeah,
because I try to do it for the people who do experience, because usually around 3 a.m., in that span of time is when those experiences occur for people who are
yeah.
having experiences real time.
Okay.
So yeah, I think I might have sent you the links to those things.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, if
Yeah.
Yeah,
Whenever we finish the video, I'm definitely gonna put them in there for people to check out. But also, real quick, if you wanna shout out and plug in yourself, where people could find you, on the X or any other social media accounts that involves this.
yeah, it's just the one. It's at CC Atlas Star, which was like an old band name that I had, so it's like an old handle.
Okay.
It's funny because like this was never my intention to be here doing this. It just happened this way.
Yeah.
Uh, Yeah, please feel free to reach out, follow, send a private message. We could always talk beforehand about your experience. We have a lot of resources that we're building in the community. If you're a woman, we have women experiencers who have had experiences as well. I always think it's best to start speaking with somebody who's of the same sex when you have an experience,
Yeah.
because we're dealing with a lot of trauma, and with trauma, there's kind of trauma bonding, things like that can occur. I think it's best so that way you can talk to somebody who isn't going to be in any way, shape, or form. You know, there isn't that man-woman barrier, or even if
Yeah.
you're, I think you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure.
Also, if whatever your sexual orientation is or however you identify, I would say go with the people and speak to the people that you identify with. So that
Yeah.
way there isn't that dynamic of possible relationship or anything of that nature, because we want to be able to focus on the trauma itself. We want to be able to focus on what we can do about getting through that trauma, validating it. From a place of safety
Yeah.
always. So I would do that. So please feel free to reach out in that regard also.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So we're gonna go ahead and cut it. Next weekend we're gonna be doing a roundtable panel. Me, you,
Yeah, I'm looking
Carsey,
forward to that.
Skits. Yeah, it's gonna be wild, and I'm thinking about maybe trying to get maybe two more people on. I'm not too sure.
Yeah,
Maybe if you know anybody, or if anybody feels safe and wants to hit
yeah,
us up. I mean, just like your group, your space. That's what this platform is for as well. People that want to
right,
come and tell their experience with no judgment. You know,
right.
that's what this is all about.
Yeah,
Helping people to come out and just start showing people more love and support for situations and experiences like this. So I really appreciate you,
absolutely.
Christian, for coming on, and
Yeah,
can't wait for next weekend, man. And for everybody out there,
yeah.
don't forget, stay melted. All right, man. Have a good one, brother.
Later. Yeah, later, brother. Take care now.
All right. People say that I'm one of the greats, I'm the one that you love to hate. Shake 'em up like a quake, pop your feelings and turn and dispose them like haters I throw away. I'm forever blessed, got the spirit that's holy controlling me, I ain't gotta coordinate. I just sit back and buckle my belt and I'm ready to blast in the stars of my destination. Melted, broadcast, open vision. Melted, broadcast, open vision. Melted, broadcast, open vision. Melted, broadcast, open vision.